Welcome to Tracking the Week. On Monday, President Bola Tinubu met with the newly appointed service chiefs at the State House in Abuja as part of ongoing efforts to strengthen Nigeria's security architecture. The service chiefs attended the closed-door meeting following their recent appointments, which the presidency described as a strategic move to enhance professionalism, efficiency, and renewed morale within the armed forces. In attendance at the meeting with the president were the Chief of Defense Staff, General Olufemi Oluyede, Chief of Army Staff, Major General Waidi Shaibu, Chief of Air Staff, Air Vice Marshal Kennedy Aneke, and Rear Admiral Idi Ibas, the Chief of Naval Staff. Also on Monday, the detained self-acclaimed leader of the proscribed separatist group, the indigenous people of the Afra IPOB, abandoned his earlier plan to call witnesses in his defense in his ongoing trial for alleged terrorism offenses. Kanu told the Federal High Court in Abuja that he realized that there was no valid charge against him and that evidence led so far have not established any case against him to require to enter defense. The court had on October 24 adjourned till October 27 for Kanu to open his defense. Kanu had written the court indicating his intention to call witnesses and applied for witness summons. When the case was called, Adegboyega Umolu-san announced the parents along with some other lawyers for the prosecution. Kanu also announced his name and said he was representing himself, following which Awumolu reminded the court that the business of the day was for defendant to open his defense. On Tuesday, the Nigerian Senate confirmed the appointment of Malam Abubakar Sadiq Yelwa as Managing Director of the National Hydroelectric Power Producing Areas Development Commission (NIPEDEC) for a second four-year term. Presenting the report, the Senate Committee on Power, Senator Abaribe Eyinaya from Abia South said the committee found him qualified to hold the position. Supporting his confirmation, Senator Adamu Alero Kebi said the idea of establishing NIPEDEC was first mooted by him and the late governor of Niger State, Abdulkadir Kure, but the idea did not come to fruition until when Buhari came on board as president of the country. Also commending the appointment is former governor of Sokoto State and now senator representing Sokoto South, Aminu Tambuwal. Also on Tuesday, the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency (NDLEA) warned nightclub operators and fun seekers about the creeping culture of organizing, hosting and attending drug parties, a disturbing fad within social circles, which is a blatant illegality under the Nigerian law. The agency's warning came on the use of a raid carried out by its operatives at a drug party which held on the night of Saturday, 25th October into the early hours of Sunday, 26th October 2025 at Proxy Nightclub, where over 100 attendees were arrested alongside the owner of the facility, Mike Eze Nwale Nwogo, also known as Pretty Mike, and his manager, Joachim Millery. The agency urges all patriotic Nigerians, parents, religious and community leaders, as well as concerned citizens to be vigilant, report such activities and partners with the NDLEA in combating this threat to national well-being. On Wednesday, President Bola Tinubu executed relevant instrument of release to complete the process of formally exercising his constitutional power of prerogative of mercy to grant pardon and clemency to specific individuals who were earlier convicted for various offences. Consequently, certain persons convicted of serious crimes such as kidnapping, drug-related offences, human trafficking, fraud, unlawful possession of firearms, arms stealing, etc. were deleted from the list. Others who had been hitherto pardoned in oddlists had their sentences commuted. This action became necessary in view of seriousness and security implications of some of the offences, the need to be sensitive to the feelings of victims of the crimes and society in general, the need to boost the morale of law enforcement agencies and adherence to bilateral obligations. The concept of justice as a three-way traffic for the accused, the victim and the state society also guided the review. Still on Wednesday, the Nigerian Senate confirmed the nominees presented by President Bola Tinubu for position of service chiefs. Those confirmed are Olufemi Oluyede as Chief of Defense Staff, Wahidi Shaibu as Chief of Army Staff, Idi Ibas as Chief of Naval Staff, and Kennedy Aneke as Chief of Air Staff. The confirmation followed a 2-hour closed-door session where senators questioned the nominees on their plans to strengthen national security and reform the armed forces. The confirmed service chiefs now await their official swearing-in by President Tinubu. On Thursday, President Bola Tinubu took steps to strengthen the nation's security architecture with the formal decoration of the newly appointed service chief with their new ranks. President Tinubu then went in to issue them a stern directive, insisting they must crush emerging security threats facing the nation, especially those from the northwest and north central and parts of the south. He noted that the nation was yearning for peace and that there was a sense of urgency to attain it. Still on Thursday, the Nigerian Senate confirmed the nomination of Bernard Doro as a minister after a screening in plenary on Thursday. President Tinubu had the week before sent his name to the Senate in accordance with provisions of Section 14, Subsection 2 of the 1999 Constitution as amended. Doro, who becomes the third ministerial nominee from Plateau State, used the opportunity to outline his vision for fostering an inclusive humanitarian ecosystem in the country. He promised to create a humanitarian ecosystem that is inclusive, guided by impartiality and independence. After a few questions, senators expressed satisfaction with his credentials and capacity to serve. On Friday, the immediate past Chief of Defense Staff General Christopher Gwabin Musa formally retired from the Nigerian Army after 39 years of meritorious service. A pulling-out parade was held in his honor at the Nigerian Army Parade Ground to mark the end of his military career. The ceremony, which is a long-standing tradition of the armed forces, symbolized his official exit from active service. In his farewell address, General Musa expressed gratitude to President Bola Tinubu for the opportunity to serve as Chief of Defense Staff. He also appreciated officers and men of the armed forces for their commitment and sacrifices in defending the nation. The retired general paid tribute to his wife and children for their support throughout his years of service, describing them as a source of strength during difficult times. Lastly, on Friday, ahead of the 30th session of the United Nations Climate Change Conference in Brazil, President Tinubu approved the adoption of a national carbon market framework and the operationalization of the Climate Change Fund. The goal is to establish and manage Nigeria's participation in carbon markets, enabling the nation to unlock between $2.5 billion and $3 billion annually in carbon finance over the next decade to help meet climate goals. The approval followed a presentation by the Director General of NCCC, Omotenyoye Majekodunmi, at the second meeting of the Council held at the Presidential Villa, Abuja. President Tinubu, who was represented by Vice President Kashim Shettima, said the approvals were part of measures by his administration to properly position Nigeria to leverage opportunities in the global carbon market and be more active in climate change ecosystem. And that's all we have for you on Track of the Week.